Hello, and welcome to Gotham's semi-regular showcase of products and thoughts and ideas. I am Peter Schneider, and I'm here to talk about the Zoom F8 in this very formal setting. It's very strange. I feel like an idiot Edward R. Murrow, but anyways, here we go. This is the F8 from Zoom. It is the a fascinating new recorder. It is the first timecode capable professional recorder that's under $1,000. I think probably every sound person and everybody involved in digital content creation knows or has used a Zoom before if they don't own it. And we're really excited to see Zoom's entry. So a couple of things, just for the bare specs. It's timecode capable recorder. It runs on DC. It's got, well, you have a couple of different powering options. You have Hiroshi for power. We're powering ours with an NP1. It'll take AA's as well. It's got 8 inputs. They are microphone inputs. Sorry, Paulie, if you go to the XLRs. And they're line inputs if you go to the 1/4 inches. So 4 on this side, 4 on this side, 4 on this side. It also has main outs on TA3s right here, and it's got submix out on tip ring sleeve unbalanced mini here. Couple of things. The main way that you sort of interface to the recorder is through this menu button. So I'm going to press this menu button. I am, first I'll stop. Oops. I'll stop recording, and then I'll press the menu button. Oops. Ah, the app. We'll get to the app in a second, but I will stop it on the app. So there is an app, and I didn't know that it takes, once it takes control of the app, you lose local control. That's interesting. All right. Interesting. Let's see if we fix that now. Yes. Okay.
Just you have to turn Bluetooth on, swipe up from the bottom.
Let's see if we can get rid of the app control. We're connecting. And stopped. Good. And I'm going to disconnect Bluetooth. And once we disconnect Bluetooth there, then I have full control here. And so the first thing I'll go through are some of the menu options. Finder here, which will show us there's 2 SD cards that this thing is capable of. SD card 2 and 1 on the sides here. We just have one SD card in there, so there's our SD card, and it shows our files. That's how we would do playback. We can configure the inputs here. Every input has a high pass filter or an input limiter, phase inversion, phantom power. A quicker way to get to that is if we go through, and if I back out here, I can also choose each input setting by hitting the PFL button next to each gain setting here. So that'll show me the individual inputs there. I have a couple of different output settings. I have a whole bunch of different options for my headphones, as well as my main outputs, which are there. Every output and every input, it's worth noting, has its own delay and its own limiter, as well as full selection of either a mix, because this does do a mix, and I'll show that in a minute, or ISO outs. So pretty powerful routing. My record settings are up here. You can record different combinations of things to the different SD cards. You can record the same things if you want redundancy. You can record your ISOs on one card or your mix on the other card, which is kind of cool. Sample rate, it does a whole host of sample rates, including something that apparently is making a comeback, which is 48048. We just started seeing that again, believe it or not. But it goes, if I can get back to the menu option, it is worth noting that it goes all the way to 192 sample rate. And that is at all 8 tracks. 24-bit, up to 24-bit, or else you can, I think it dithers if you choose 16. It'll also simultaneously record an MP3 file for you. It does have pre-record. It's a fixed length of 6 seconds, and there's all kinds of options for file size. Play is pretty straightforward. Different options for play. Here's where things get interesting. Timecode. You have timecode in and out on the back, BNCs. So for timecode, if we go into the timecode menu, you have a couple of different modes of timecode. You have internal free run, which is basically time of day, or at least always counting up. Record run, which increments only when you press record. And this is reminiscent of the Fostex 24-hour mode, for those of you that remember that. The internal RTC run will grab the time of day from the real-time clock and stamp the broadcast wave file that it makes with the real-time clock. Or external auto record, which will automatically record when the timecode increments. The way that you set the timecode, it's worth noting, is you make sure that you're on internal free run. You have to choose restart, which is a little bit funny, and then you can set your own timecode. So if I just arbitrarily set this to 6 hours and then choose restart, you can see my timecode now is at 6 hours. Got that, Paulie? Slate mic is interesting in that you can choose multiple places to route to. One thing that I would love to see as a future addition is to be able to change that routing on the fly quickly, so that if you want to slate for recording purposes, you can do that. Or if you want to set up, say, a private line where you've set up your boom operator to monitor sub outs 1 and 2, you can do that on the fly. Going back, We have in the system menu, this is where you'd have the sort of things you'd expect, like setting the date time. This shows you all your different power options. So that's interesting. Yeah, external DC in is 15.9 volts, but it also shows my batteries are pretty well charged as well. You can set the different battery types here, so your cutoff voltage will be known and the discharge curve known. For the external DC in, you can also set shutdown voltage and nominal voltage, which is very handy. Auto power off is there. One thing to bear in mind, and this came in handy today, I was up on a roof recording surround sound of New York City, is if you go to LCD, you can turn outdoor mode on, which actually really does make it daylight visible. We'll turn that off for now. And SD card, oops. SD card, I can format. I can also do a performance test, which I think is really interesting, so that I can put an SD card in of maybe unknown origin or something that I just got and I didn't know how fast it really was, and it'll actually test the card for us. I've seen that on other Zoom recorders. It's very handy. And then the final thing in the menu structure that's worth noting is that this can become a USB audio interface. The USB port is here. And not only can it be a USB audio interface for all the tracks, but you can also, if you limit it to 2 tracks, it'll be, because it shows up as class compliant in 2 tracks, it'll be a USB interface for an iDevice, an iPad, which is pretty cool. And it'll be an SD card reader as well. So at this point, let's go through the app. You know, this is all well and good. Record is here. I can put it into record. You know, my gain controls are here. You know, I have this sort of meter screen here. By the way, if I rotate the knob here, I get to different meter screens like this. I don't know if you can see that. So that I can see all the meters. I can see my outputs. There's all my meters. There's my outputs. There's my outputs with a mix control. So these are effectively your trim pots right here. And to do a mix, you actually have to kind of go into the menu, and this is my pan. If I select it, now I'm mixing. It's a little clumsy, and so that's where the app comes in handy. The app is on an iOS device, and we'll connect that in a second. You know, a couple of notes. I would love to see a hardware fader panel so that I have real knobs here, or some kind of thing where I could swap these from being trims to being faders and let the trims be in this screen. Maybe even sort of, if it's a fader and I touch it a little bit, maybe this then becomes the trim for that input. I'd love to see that in the future. It doesn't do that right now. All right, so to connect the Bluetooth app, you're going to have to do 2 things. One, of course, you're going to have to go to the Apple Store and get your Zoom F8 app. The other is you're going to have to go to Zoom's website and download a firmware patch. So don't try this without going to the Zoom website and getting the firmware patch. To initiate connection, hold down the menu key, and it's going to show you a screen that says connecting Bluetooth device. Are you sure? And we say yes. And then on our app, we say reconnect. And if the technology gods are smiling upon us, it will connect. And there we go. So now I press record here, and the recorder goes into record. Stop. You know, I have full control. I can do all kinds of metadata things. I can do my PFL listen. I can go to the mixer, and here I can do a mix. And as you can see, I don't know if you see that fader moving. Oops. And as I touch this, there we go. So that becomes a kind of a more usable solution, although, you know, again, I would like to see hardware faders. I should also add, by the way, and we can do it on here, you have to record enable tracks. So record enable is here. If I had local control, it's also here. And there is some two-way sync going on here. So that is that's the Zoom F8 in a nutshell. Anybody have any questions? Anybody want to see anything special? I would, what I'm going to do now is set metadata. And so that is in here. I'm curious about this myself. Next take. And I can, oops, edit the scene here. So we'll make this scene got. Enter. And we'll change the take reset to off. And so there we go. There's my scene and take. All right, I think we have Samuel on the line with us, our Zoom official. Any comments or suggestions from Samuel, Chris?
We have had a few questions, one of them concerning a possible Android version of the app you were using.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. That's a good question for our Zoom expert.
Yeah, and Samuel has answered it, saying that there are currently no plans for an Android app, but never say never, obviously.
All right, so that would be my +1 vote for an Android app.
There was also a question about the release date, whether it would hit the US and Europe simultaneously, or what the rollout process was like. Samuel also answered that by saying you can go to zoom.co.jp and find out by each individual country and the distributors therein.
All right. Well, cool. You should definitely come and check it out at Gotham Sound in New York and Atlanta. I just got back from a morning of recording on a New York City rooftop with a surround microphone, and you know, I enjoy using this recorder. I was happy with the mic preamps. I suppose we'll follow up with posting that recording, and we'll show a picture with it as well. We did submit files to a post facility here in New York, who ran it through their ColorFront daily system, and the metadata came through with no problem. through the ColorFront syncing app all the way to the Avid. So we were happy to hear that. And that was a 48048 recording, so definitely kudos to Zoom for getting that correct. Yeah, I think if there's no other questions, we will.
One more.
Awesome. Wait. Yes.
Peter?
Yeah.
We have a request from Samuel to check out monochromatic mode.
The daylight mode?
I'm sorry?
Daylight mode is what he's thinking about, yeah.
Yes.
It's something I showed earlier, and when I was on the rooftop, it really came in handy. It was in broad daylight. All right, so I think I have to do this through the, yeah, all right, so we're going to disconnect Bluetooth. And I have to stop recording. Got it. There we go. All right. So system, LCD, and outdoor mode is now on. So this is monochromatic mode. And I'll show the different meter screens. And it really did work. It was perfectly daylight readable. I'll post some pictures as soon as we're done. You know, I have a question for Samuel. I wonder if he could go through, there's something that I saw, if he could talk about dual channel record. What, can he shed light on dual channel record?
He did say that there is the dual channel recording feature allowing you to record 4 tracks with double tracks at 12 dB lower gain.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We also just got one more question coming in from Eric Kreigelmans, who's been very active.
Uh-huh.
He asked, do we know if the TC oscillator is temperature compensated?
Yeah, this has come up. I know that at room temperature, it's the timecode clock. We did, what was it, 2 frames in 16 hours, which is, you know, fine for production. And that's sort of our off-the-cuff test, to be honest. Temperature compensation would be a little bit trickier to test. My idea is, and we could do this tonight, I suppose, we'll take the F8, we'll put it in our freezer overnight, and then we'll immediately test it, and we'll see if that accuracy changes. That's sort of the only way, without getting scientific, that I know how to test it. What does our Zoom official think of that idea? No comment.
So far, I think he's stunned into silence.
All right. I don't recommend other people do that with their Zoom F8, but we will do it in the interest of science. All
right. Sam actually just got back to us, and he said that he absolutely loves that idea.
All right. Excellent. Good. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that it's clear by Zoom's participation that they're very much interested in a dialogue about this machine. I think that as a primary recorder for a lot of people and as a backup recorder for a lot of people, this will do really well. And I think with some minor changes, or relatively minor changes in my opinion, I'm not the one that has to make the changes, this recorder can compete with other recorders that are significantly more expensive. Yeah, I mean, it's very, very interesting to me what Zoom has done. I am particularly interested because there is not a filmmaker currently working. And I think I can honestly say this from the lower budget stuff that I've worked on to the higher budget stuff that I've worked on, where Zoom isn't a known entity on that set, whether it's 2 people doing a documentary or 1 person doing a documentary to a whole union feature crew. People know about the Zoom brand, and to see them sort of enter our market in this way with Timecode, with this form factor, is really very exciting. So kudos to Zoom. So hopefully I have not alienated every other manufacturer. And on that note, I think unless there's any more questions.
We have just one thing. Sam says, as always, they are very interested in hearing any feedback and any feature requests. You can contact them at info@zoom-na.com.
The thing that I would love to see is the ability for these to become faders, and or the addition of some kind of little control surface that would allow for faders and trim control. I think that those would be huge additions to that. I'd love to see the app more fleshed out. I'd love to see more of a concentration on metadata. It's a little bit clumsy if I'm entering in scene and take constantly to have to go through some menus. Maybe, I haven't explored the iPad version of the app, so Sam, if you know if the iPad version is substantially different, please tell us. And then a kind of personal axe that I have to grind is to open up any of the APIs into the recorder to allow third parties to make accessories for the recorder. That way, if, let's say, Zoom didn't see a tremendous amount of profit potential in one kind of accessory, other manufacturers could step up. So yeah. Awesome. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a great day.